There are a lot of themes found within One Piece. Aside from the broader topic of freedom, the most frequent has to be that of inherited will. We see it come up in basically every single arc. So many characters, good and bad, have stories that are tied to that idea. Even the main overarching story of the world itself is one of inherited will. The Void Century and the Will of D are arguably the biggest mysteries in the series. Coincidentally, in the same arc that the Will of D was first mentioned is, in my opinion, one of the most profound and poetic examples of inherited will. That is, the story of Tony Chopper and the mad Dr. Hiriluk. Not only does it beautifully display the tangible influence of a person's will, it also underlines the power of pure kindness and love. In order to talk about the healing power of love, we first need to look at the destructive qualities of hatred. In many cases, hatred comes from a place of fear of something or someone that is different. In the case of Chopper, fear and hatred were most prominently expressed as rejection. To be rejected is to not be accepted, and where there is no acceptance, there is no love. When you reject someone for who they are, you're communicating to them that they are fundamentally flawed. When that message is delivered repeatedly, they will eventually start to believe it. They will become sick in the heart as all the painful hatred they've endured gets internalized. Eventually, the lack of love that has been received can make it hard to love at all. It can also make them crave it more than anything else. Drum Island is where I became more emotionally invested in One Piece than ever before. Something about Chopper's story and how he fit into the journey of the crew at that point really stood out to me. I think it's uniquely beautiful in terms of crewmate introductions because of how different Chopper is with him being an animal, yet accepted as a friend all the same.
What the dog doing?
But not only was the flashback uniquely beautiful, it was uniquely heartbreaking in a way that Oda hadn't really captured before. I think that what makes Chopper's backstory so heartbreaking is his innocence. Not only is he essentially a child, he's a being whose pure existence is a fluke. He was merely a wild animal that just so happened to eat a devil fruit, turning him into something more. He didn't choose to become that way. It was nothing more than an accident. Before that though, he was already considered a mistake. Out of all the reindeer in his herd, he was the only one born with a blue nose, and it didn't help that he was a runt either. He didn't fit in, so he was rejected. From the very start, Chopper didn't even get a chance to truly understand what it meant to be loved, and yet his soul yearned for it. Once Chopper became a human-reindeer hybrid, his herd cast him out entirely. He wandered into a local village because if he was too weird to be a normal reindeer, then maybe his new appearance could at least help him connect with some humans. But their fear quickly turned to fury, and their fury turned to violence. They forced Chopper to flee, and with nowhere to go, he ran aimlessly through the woods. Confused and isolated, the constant hatred was beginning to wear him down. He was just about ready to lose all hope. He was beginning to identify with the demeaning labels he'd been given. Bloodied and defeated, he did nothing but lie in the snow as he accepted the growing despair within himself. That is, until a crazy old man came to his aid. Even after Chopper attacked him out of fear that he would be hurt again, the old man still tried to help him. He cared so much about getting through to the strange reindeer creature that he stripped himself naked as a sign of peace. On top of giving us some of the most creative examples of censorship in the anime and manga, this insane gesture was enough to get Chopper's attention. Dr. Hiriluk knew nothing about the animal other than the fact that he was wounded and needed to be healed. This was undoubtedly the worst doctor in Drum Island and arguably the whole world. However, at that moment, there was no better person to have found Chopper than him. Despite his physical injuries, the one thing that Chopper needed the most was treatment for his heart. Hiriluk was somebody with an intense desire to help others. His will was driven entirely by a love for life. Unfortunately, his intentions were a far cry from his actual skill. As a matter of fact, he caused way more illnesses than he successfully treated. He really wasn't cut out for being a doctor. He was just compelled to try because so many citizens around him were suffering. In reality, Hiriluk had a much stronger primary dream. What he really wanted was to spread wonder and joy because he believed that by lifting a person's spirits, you could simultaneously cure any disease that they might have. For him, this belief manifested as the simple pleasure of seeing cherry blossoms bloom, so he spent 30 years of his life trying to bring that experience to the people of Drum Island. Emotions are incredibly infectious. When someone is angry and they show you aggression, it's likely that you'll end up feeling pretty upset too. However, if they're friendly, hospitable, and kind, it becomes a lot easier to follow suit. Hatred more than any other feeling can spread like a disease. Chopper was on the verge of fully succumbing to that disease. He had been rejected time and time again until his pain had become nearly unbearable. He was pretty close to just becoming a monster fueled by resentment, but Dr. Hiriluk managed to give him relief. He was well aware of the disease of hatred and especially how it had consumed Drum Island. He himself used to be a cynical thief until he became enlightened by the natural beauty of the world. If he could help others see that beauty on a wide scale, well, maybe they could be cured in the same way that he was. Whether or not his hypothesis was right didn't matter. He was so passionate about that dream that it inspired Chopper. It inspired him to believe in the impossible. Hiriluk taught him about pirates and what it means to have conviction in your dreams. Moreover, Hiriluk's extreme dedication to spreading kindness was enough to dissolve the hatred Chopper had been absorbing for years. Through the quack doctor, the little reindeer learned what it actually felt like to be accepted completely for who he was. He learned how much difference just one friend could make. Even though Hiriluk was a horrible doctor, his love and compassion proved to be genuine medicine for Chopper. As idealistic as this sounds, there is some very real truth behind it. Psychological theories of humanism consider love to be a foundational element of mental and emotional well-being. Carl Rogers, a key figure in this school of thought, believed that when individuals feel accepted and loved unconditionally, they are more likely to develop a positive self-image and experience personal growth. More famously, Abraham Maslow believed that love is a fundamental human need among a hierarchy of other needs. In his theory, if a person doesn't feel emotionally supported, then they will greatly struggle to reach their full potential. So while it may be portrayed through the lens of fantasy within One Piece, love has a tremendous effect on our psychological health, which is really what Hiriluk was trying to prove in my opinion. Love can go a long way, but of course it can't make us live forever. Dr. Hiriluk would soon contract a deadly disease, and to spare Chopper the sadness of seeing his only friend perish, he pushed him away. But something unexpected happened. The love he'd been shown had affected him so deeply that Chopper wanted to give it back at any cost. With his equally minuscule knowledge of medicine, he set out on a treacherous journey to find a cure. In the end, Chopper went through a great deal of suffering to find that cure, but he still failed. When Hiriluk realized the lengths that he went to, he hugged him and he drank the poisonous mushroom soup knowing full well what it was. He made the choice to reinforce Chopper's efforts with gratitude because such resolve to help others is incredibly rare. It may not have been what was needed to save him from his illness, in fact quite the opposite, but it is the most important quality for a doctor to have. Hiriluk decided to nurture Chopper's growing will to help others in the hopes that it would live on after his demise. When Chopper found out the gravity of his mistake, it broke him. At that moment, his dream of being able to cure any disease was perhaps the strongest it's ever been. He went to Kureha, begging her to teach him what Hiriluk couldn't, all while waving a Jolly Roger as a sign of his relentless commitment. And so she taught him everything she knew. He became a great doctor with abundant knowledge of medical science. Nevertheless, his failure still haunted him and his scars ran deep. He once again found it hard to believe that he was worthy of love. That is, until a crazy, stretchy pirate with the inability to take no for an answer came to his aid. Chopper's first impression of Luffy was admittedly not the friendliest. Yes, he and Sanji did chase him through the castle in hopes of eating him, but after they saw him transform, talk, and protect a bird's nest, they realized he was different. Luffy calls him a monster, but unlike almost every other person that Chopper has met, he follows this up by saying, "What an interesting guy." Luffy admired him so much that he didn't even know he was a doctor. He just wanted him to join because of who he was. For the first time in a long time, Chopper's unusual nature was not ostracized. The other Straw Hats also expressed an acceptance of Chopper's unique existence. His first response to that reception was fear and rejection, a defense mechanism built up after years of being shown the same response from others. Regardless, the crew went on to display a level of loyalty that he had never seen before. He was in awe. Surely that sort of camaraderie wasn't real, and if it were, it most definitely wouldn't apply to somebody like Chopper, right? But Luffy went out of his way to stand up for him and his beliefs. He also, as previously mentioned, refused to leave without Chopper. So eventually, his walls broke down. As he sprinted through the snow of the Drum Kingdom for the final time, he looked towards the Going Merry, towards his future. Then he closed his eyes. He questioned if he could really trust the enthusiastic optimism of his father, and he questioned if the uncertainty was worth the risk. He was afraid. Grappled with doubt, he looked back. What he saw were cherry blossoms blooming above a snow island, symbolizing the realization of the impossible. It was nearly a lifetime in the making, and so he wept.
Can we get much
Dr. Hiriluk proposed that if you can lift up a person's spirit, then you can save them from any fate. He theorized that the same could be done for an entire country. Realistically, you need to do a lot more. However, his caring nature and insatiable drive to be a good doctor led him to a creature with the same love for the world as him. Somebody that would go on to become a better doctor than he ever was. In a world where he had been excluded his whole life and had lost his only friend, Chopper met people who admired him for the very same things that made him an outcast in the first place. People that gave him a reason to smile. People that made him feel loved and appreciated. He now sails the sea with them, going from island to island, healing as many living things as he can. Chopper strives to spread the same kindness that was shown to him during his time of need, because he knows the impact it can have. Most of all, he continues to expand his medical skill, and one day he will manage to cure every disease in the world. So, in a way, Hiriluk was right. Show love to everyone you meet. Your compassion can ripple across the planet, so it is your duty to scatter it as much as you can. No matter how strange, bizarre, or different someone may seem, accept them as they are. Unless they've shown you otherwise, a person is only a monster as much as you think they are. That is what Tony Chopper's character is all about. That is what makes him special. That is the power of love.